Behind every collectible guitar is a story. Let me tell you about the Forgotten 8. Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. So I've got a really cool behind-the-scenes story for you guys today. You guys remember back in 2019 when Gibson did a Chuck Berry 350T signature guitar? It was meant to be modeled after his first Gibson 350T. It had the P90 pickups, and they only made 55 of these things. They had extraordinarily beautiful tops, back, and sides, flamed 3-piece maple necks with stingers. They even came out of the custom shop with the bolo ties. They were just fantastic guitars. You can check out my full review and demo of one right here. However, it took them a long time to produce these things. I think I vaguely remember waiting a year and a half for mine. It actually had a 2021 serial number to it. But the rumor on the street is Gibson accidentally made 8 too many. It's either that or maybe they built these and they deemed them not good enough to be the Chuck Berry signature model, so they left them back, and that births the mystical 8 that I'm talking about today. Because being a super limited edition, they had to modify these guitars to be something a little bit different. So the Gibson executives gave the go-ahead to go crazy on these 8 guitars, give them a custom finish, and make them something entirely different. Let's check them out. Starting off with what I believe is the coolest one, and now owned by Sean Stockman of the Boys to Men group. Take a look at this ES-350T. It's got a really cool, like, purplish blue burst to it. And he first initially shared this guitar off in a music video with Marty Music. There'll be a link in the description if you want to check their jam out and see some more of this guitar in action. But this is the video that tipped me off that there's supposedly 8 of these things, because I had seen 1 or 2 of these things like show up on Reverb, but Sean was told the whole rest of the story. So he was actually at the Gibson custom shop. He looked over at it and he said this thing winked at him because he saw the other ones there, but this one grabbed his attention, and I've got to hand it to him. He's got great taste. If I would have saw that thing in the shop, I would have been taking that thing home too, because that finish plays off the gold hardware and the black plastic so exquisitely. They bursted the sides and the neck like all the other ones had, and it's kind of hard to tell by this video if it still has the stinger of the original one, but maybe he'll share some more photos of this thing eventually. But it's great to know that one of these 8 went to a famous musician who is going to be using it. You can follow him on Instagram at Sean Stockman Official if you'd like. So that was the first one. Pretty exotic, right? But here is our next one. It was done up in tri-burst. Now remember, the original Chuck Berrys, they were all natural, so it was pretty easy for them just to apply whatever finish they want on these things. So we had exotic, and now we have a little bit more traditional, but yet modern at the same time. So whenever I think tri-burst, I think of the 68 reissue Les Paul Customs, and I'm not a big fan of them because they're generally a perimeter burst. This one has it right, being a big teardrop shape. It works great for the 350T. The flame top on this one is quite spectacular, maybe not as cool and exotic as the purple one, and strangely enough, that is weird. Teardrop shape on the front, but they did the rim burst on the back. You got one for both of the lovers here. But this one has a pretty evenly flamed back. And of course the sides have some pretty excellent figuring on this one as well. So this doesn't quite line up to the whole maybe it wasn't good enough type thing. Maybe they really just did accidentally make too many of them. But it is important to note that these are no longer sold as Chuck Berry signature models. But the Gibson custom shop doesn't generally make this guitar outside of that. And if you ask them about it, they're pretty open that yeah, these were initially meant to be Chuck Berrys. But of course we still have our beautifully flamed neck. A little bit more stronger on this side than that side, but definitely still great. And it looks like we still do have the stinger on here, it's just the whole tri-burst finish makes it really hard to see. This one's listed on Reverb for $14,000. Now, if you're shocked by that price tag, you gotta remember, the actual signature ones have sold between $95,000 to $12,000, and the initial retail price was $10,000. And since those are so rare, that $10,000 to $12,000 really is where they sit today. So I guess only time will tell if these Forgotten 8 actually become more valuable than the Chuck Berry run or not. That's kind of why I wanted to document them in this episode. That way they're not completely forgotten, but can become an asterisk as part of the original 350T run. Guitar number 3 of the series is Viceroy Brown. So this time, instead of that dark border burst, it's a little bit more like Les Paul reissue-like. This is a very attractive one if you like those more faded out colors. I particularly really like the back on this one. I believe Alex Lifeson has a signature guitar done up in this finish, and the neck on this one is much more evenly flamed. But here we can see the stinger much more prominently, and in true Chuck Berry 350T style, yeah, those sides are spectacular on this one. So another one that kind of goes against the whole, maybe they weren't good enough, but that's only 3 out of them, so let's see what else was potentially offered within this run. we break away from the burst to something even more extraordinary. Now, when I first saw this thing show up on Reverb, I was like, oh yeah, true rockabilly fashion here. We've got a dirty sparkle orange. If you look at the up close there, it's got some black flakes in it too, on top of the gold flakes. So this is just something completely out of the ordinary. They truly went as crazy as they could on this. It's a darn shame that it's such a solid finish because we know there's gotta be at least some pretty decent wood underneath there. But this one seems to kind of line up along those thinkings of, okay, maybe this one didn't have the best flame top, back, and or side, so they decided to cover it over. But that makes this Chuckberry 350T kind of an interesting one because, you know, it's one of the few solid colored ones. Unfortunately, we do lose the stinger on the back of the headstock though. I think that would have been a nice touch to have left that alone, but nope. It does make me curious though if these were ever actually finished and then they had to like finish over top of them when they realized, uh-oh, we made too many. But if you zoom in here, you can actually see these were completed in pretty late 2021. So that makes me think they maybe made them but didn't finish them completely until then. So they probably were just raw. And ooh, interestingly enough, these come with a Gibson Crimson Division COA. That's something a little bit different. The original Chuckberry run actually had a Crimson COA booklet, in color anyways, but it wasn't actually part of the Gibson Crimson Division. Just in case you don't know, Crimson ranks above the custom shop. That's like where their art guitars come out of and like some of the really high-end archtop jazz guitars. So kind of interesting to see a sparkle finish come out of those guys. That one's currently being listed on Reverb for $12,500. Next up, we have one called Tiger Gloss. Now, do you guys understand how I was saying, you know, maybe some of these just weren't good enough for the Chuckberry name? Because yeah, for supposed to being crazy flame top, there's not much to really talk about on this one. Like at certain angles, yeah, it comes through. But look at the 350T I documented and all these other ones that we've seen before. He really had to break out his flash to even show anything on this one. So maybe that's what that other sparkle top looked like. I'm kind of surprised they didn't like do a red sparkle or just go a whole bunch of sparkles with these. Interestingly enough though, this for sale ad does not have any photos of the back and side, so maybe they're not too spectacular either, which is strange because it's from the same guy who's selling all the other ones. So here's the further story behind these, is I believe these were sold by the Gibson garage. So if you happen to call them up or you're buddy with them or you happen to visit it, you could have saw these things sitting there. So I think this guy bought them up. Maybe he got a bulk package deal on them. Looks like this seller also deals with the mod collection demo shop stuff. No hate there. I mean, if it wasn't for these listings, I might not have ever been keen to know that there were a few of these things done, but it really was the whole Boys to Men video that cemented the idea that, okay, so there were 8 of them. So that's why I had to track them all down for this video. Because unfortunately, that is where all the public ones end. But don't worry, my friends, I tracked down the last 3. So, in true sparkle fashion, they also did a blue sparkle one. Oh, you guys know I like my blue sparkles, so seeing that they did an orange and a blue one, that is just awesome. It's got the gold hardware. I mean, what more could you really want in a 350T? It'd be interesting to take a look in here with the endoscope to see just how figured the woods were. But you definitely don't see too many of these models out there in the sparkle finishes, let alone blue. Now, unfortunately, we lost the stinger on this one as well, just like the last one. And if I'm being honest here, the orange sparkle is a little bit cooler because it definitely gives you off those rockabilly vibes a little bit better than the blue sparkle, but hey, it just kind of depends what you're going for, right? And then the next one I think is very tasteful. I'm not generally a fan of Cherry Sunburst. This one looks more like a heritage cherry, but this is a fantastic example. Very evenly flamed throughout the top. Again, the gold hardware, the black plastics, it matches, it all looks good. But then when you get to the back, this is another one of those ones I'm like, okay, maybe that's why it didn't quite make the cut. There's just no flame right here. It's beautifully figured on 3/4 of the whole thing, but then right here, yeah, not so good, but at the same time, it's on the back. People are on my back all the time. Why do you care about what the back looks like? Well, when I have the guitar, I do look at the back. So it makes me curious if this area right here is also kind of plain. It's kind of hard to tell in these photos. But hey, beggars can't be choosers when you're trying to find these ones that haven't been publicly available to view on the internet. But the great kicker on this one is, look at the sides on that. That is extremely flamed. You know that's going to look good in person. And I like the fact that we have the continuation of the red burst. It just works on this model. And then look at the neck on this one. Extra wide flame. Really enjoy that. Still the 3-piece neck, the black stinger really contrasts greatly against this finish. Outside of the orange sparkle, I really think this is probably the nicest one of the limited colors here. So we've seen 7 of them, right? But unfortunately, the 8th one has been lost to time. I was unable to get photos for this video. However, I was told by somebody who saw it at the Gibson custom shop that it was another one of these red ones, but it had a little bit of a dark border to it, so it was like a red burst. So here's a quick little mock-up of that. So since I haven't actually seen it in person, it'd probably be very similar to the dark Wineburst finish of the 90s, where you have this slightly darker border with the nice red burst. It could have also been more subtle, like this one that I had from 1993. I was really kind of hoping it'd be more dramatic, like the Black Widow. Have a really dark red border, that'd be sweet. Or I suppose an even better representation would be something like the Legrand that I have right now. It's kind of big arch-toppy, but a little bit bigger because the 350T is a thin line, as the T implies in the name. So there we go, the Forgotten 8, the additional Chuck Berry 350Ts that were just given the A-OK to go crazy on the finish. I love this project, and I'm so happy the full story was shared, and I was able to track down at least 7 of the 8 to show photos with you guys. So I'd be curious, what do you think? Do you think these will be more valuable than the initial run Chuck Berries in like 10, 15, 20 years when most of them aren't all readily available on eBay? Or do you think these things will get lost to time, or collectors won't even care since the Chuck Berry name's not even associated with them on a technical sense? But with that, I will leave you guys tonight. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.